Friedman is Ms. Friedman, we're waiting for her to arrive. In the meantime, we'll jump to the next portion of the, which would be the reports. Superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. Trota. Short one. Summer's all about preparation. A lot of people think that summertime for school districts is going to slow down. I am living the truth that is not the truth. We've been working non-stop. We've got teachers in, we've all sorts of staff members in the central office is coming. I do want to take a second just to congratulate the Let's Learn project that will be ending this week. A lot of big things are going on, culminating Friday with final performances. We're having some of our administrators in on Friday to see those performances, and thank Ms. Lucia and all the staff that have been working. I received a number of emails from parents thanking us for running the program again. The children having a wonderful time, and as far as the parents are concerned, we're not happy with the program. Want to announce that we finalized the board retreat, August 13th, 6 p.m. In the meeting center. We will advertise as appropriate. The focus of the retreat is strategic planning, as well as to set board and superintendent's goals. And my understanding is all but one of our board members will be able to be present at that point in time. It is, of course, open to the public. Hiring. We have been pushing through the hiring based on the previous conversations. There are a number of people that we'll be able to get up through today, have final interviews for, which will be on the agenda, including some elementary positions as well as some administrative positions. And we'll talk more about that in a little bit, but happy to take questions about that later on. As far as summer work, Ms. Villani has been working with a couple of groups of teachers. We're rewriting curriculum, as we talked about, based on our QSAC findings. We were out of compliance, but also based on the work that we want to do. Curriculum was in need of dramatic revision. We have two groups, one dealing with K-12 math, one dealing with K-12 language arts, working as we speak. We've already got our first round of submissions, and Ms. Villani is getting those ready for our curricular, our academic committee, so they can be presented there, and then we can approve them before the start of the school year. This will certainly involve teacher preparation and training, possibly new materials. As with all curricula, just to point out the process again, when we revise curriculum, rewrite curriculum, it's in a state of flux for 1 year. It's set in September, but the idea of that first year teaching through the new curriculum is that we will make revisions to that, and come the next summer, we will make a final presentation of the curriculum to the board. So every year, every time we do that, we run a new curriculum. We always have a year's grace period, if you will, work with that, allow teachers to teach it in a real situation and see what works and what doesn't. While she's doing her curriculum work, even more important, we're creating assessments. We talked about performance matters, and we showed teachers were great in getting one assessment in internally through the course of the second half of the year. As they're writing the new curricula, each of them will include benchmark assessments, which we run through performance matters, so teachers have capabilities we start to train on, breaking those down, being able to regroup their students and know exactly what skills students are strong in and where they need more work. So it's all part and parcel of the same work. Mr. Levine has been heading up just because of, again, our schedule work. The submission date is August 2nd. He has been working with Real-Time, new student information system. I have to thank them very much for their help as well, but with Mr. Biemeister, Ms. Alessio, and the help of our principals, we've been doing our best to make sure we make it the August 2nd. As of today, Mr. Levine was 100% confident we will make that deadline. I know by saying that I probably jinx it, but things are looking very strong. We've built most of the schedules. The elementary buildings are moving along, and even though this isn't the way we want it to happen, the good news is it will set us up perfectly to start September 1, exactly when we need to be with Real-Time. School Point, Mr. Levine's still working with School Point. We've had a number of trainings now for in-district leaders. We're looking to have the website up and running September is our goal. Superintendents and central office pages, different building and department pages. I've already talked to some of the PTO presidents about working with them and getting as many organizations that are connected to the school district into the website as possible. Performance Matters, we have weekly updates with Performance Matters, and we're still working with them to make sure that by our administrative retreat, which is August 7th, 8th, and 9th, we're bringing all the administrators of the district together, that we are 100% ready to roll out our full boat, if you will, of evaluations. Every position that's talked about is in a new format, and every position will be done through Performance Matters, through Observer and what they call FAST. Finally, just an update on Real-Time. We are looking to open the parent portal in the middle of August, so that the first access points, if you will, the parent portal, schedules, demographic information, the rest will be available. We'll be doing trainings as well as getting information out to all of our parents that can log in and tape bulletins on the front door of the schools. We're trying to reach our goal. As well, Mr. Levine has scheduled and posted for teacher trainers. We'll be training teachers the last week of August so that every single building has in-building trainers, master teachers, if you will, when it comes to real-time. Basic functionality is all we're starting with first. Can you log in? Can you find students? Can you take attendance? Can you do all your grading and assessment work in real time? Making sure teachers understand that they now have access directly to 504 plans, to IEPs, to any kind of information that's either building or district or grade level wise. It's no longer pushing the papers. Everything is in front of you as long as you have an internet connection. And with that, that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Board Secretary's report.
I will defer to you, Mr. President, and you give me the final list.
Committee reports.
Mr. President, board members, you probably received your brief tonight a little late. I apologize for that on the administration meeting, but I did receive some correspondence back, and if you have any questions as we're moving forward, just get them to me and I'll try to get you the answers. We talked about the Radcliffe School chimney, we talked about some solar review, we talked about some employees that we're looking at. We talked about the technology update. We're making some pretty good access, as the superintendent alluded to, on the card access. We went over some job descriptions. Specifically, I know there were some questions about the coaching positions and their responsibility to our children on not only coaching, but on access to higher education when they leave here and what our coaches should be doing. We're dealing with that situation. We also talked about different policy updates, which I hope you had a chance to look at, and some policies that will be on for our reading tonight. It was a productive meeting. That's pretty much it.
The ad hoc committee for the long-term facility planning met on Thursday, July 12th. It was myself, Ms. Flynn, and Mr. Scalera. It was a preliminary meeting. We formulated a charter as follows. The long-term facility planning committee will develop a strategy for the school's district's facilities to foster and support the educational needs of the students in furtherance of the mission and vision of the school district. Action items that we're looking into: identify all existing facilities owned and rented, review enrollment and current capacity calculations, evaluate the nature, capacity, and condition of all of our facilities, and evaluate the demographic projection to anticipate enrollment capacity needed for the next 5 to 10 years to properly serve the community.
Very good.
Thank you.
One question, are we going to expand that committee? Are we going to have input from civilians?
Yes, I met with Mayor Petracco, and he was on board. He was very enthusiastic. He's going to give me some contact points with the planning and the zoning board. We just wanted to have a preliminary meeting first to get the charter and exactly what we want to do, and then we'll go into the community and recruit people.
Thank you.
I think that ties into one of the things on the report too. What's going on. Facilities Committee met, the Finance Committee met this evening and discussed a number of items. The first item was the review of the 2011-2012 fiscal year, going over transfers, list of transfers which will be presented to the full board at our August meeting, and the rationale behind them. Looking at the revenue versus actual versus projected for pay to participate, and there was a shortfall which was made up by income from rental properties. Custodial overtime, the amount for the year, $135,000, of which $21,000, interestingly enough, is overtime for parks and rec activities. Shared service, I said part of our shared service with the town. Premonition, I thought I was going to do that, so I forget.
Good thing you reminded us.
That's right. And finally, we know the financials for the extended day, which completed the year successful financial, from a financial point of view, and a successful note. And we asked them, the business administrator, if she can get us with it from a balance sheet perspective where they wound up. The intent of trying to build their reserve for future needs. Then we looked at the 2012-2013 fiscal year, and the business administrator talked about truing up the budget for once all the positions are finalized, which we'll go into closed session tonight, and then approve some personnel matters, then we'll be able to true up the specific categories. One of the difficulties in the budget is the granularity of this budget and the level of detail, and then trying to true up within categories to make sure that we have the adequate money where it's needed. We talked about 5-year financial projection, and that ties into facilities that we want to ensure that the financial resources are available for what we need as we go forward for demographics and facilities needs as we go forward. And particular concern where we want to have various scenarios with respect to the situation with the Roach property and how that might impact us as we go forward. And I think that we agreed that we want to be proactive in this and be close with the township in this process, be involved with the process with the township. And that ties into your discussion with the mayor. It fits in nicely. Talked about the fiber optic project. There's a lot of impressions as to what the financial impact is, and we're still waiting for some actual financial analysis of what the actual impact is on the district and on the township, and what the capital expenditure is necessary to complete that. One other item I'll mention is we have some trailers that were used for construction at the Spring Garden and other spots, and the township would like to use those, but I think before we go that far, we would like to know if we had any use for them for ourselves. We have a couple of possibilities, so we want to defer a decision on that as we go forward. It's pretty much sums up what we did tonight. Any other committee reports? Yeah, we're going to. Oh, I'm sorry, Mrs. Friedman. We'd like to welcome Mrs. Friedman from New Jersey School Boards, who will be making a presentation to the board on the board's self-evaluation.
It's not very easy to come into this room unnoticed, I must say. Thank you for having me this evening in Joanne's absence, and I know that you know that Joanne has retired. And so what I'd like to do is review the census form. And if everybody could just check on that for your contact information, that would be wonderful. What you're all looking for, which would be the results of the compiled evaluation. I just wanted to go over a couple of things with you that are in the packet, and then we'll review the evaluation. I'll hand you that in a second. On the left-hand side is an evaluation process calendar, and this can be very, very helpful to you when moving forward and doing your yearly self-evaluation and also the superintendent's evaluation. So that may be of a big help to you. Behind that are the deadlines for the superintendent's evaluation. I know you've done that already. And also for renewing the contract and contract expiring. And then behind that are some of the programs that we can offer you. On the right-hand side is most of the information that we're going to talk about tonight. And I just really want to call your attention to three different things. And that's the green sheet that talks about board goal development. And part of what we utilize the board self-evaluation for is to help come up and frame, kind of set the stage for setting your board and district goals. And the last, if you remember on the board self-evaluation, the last two questions that you answered were about the challenges that were in the district and the things that you would like as a board to receive additional training. So we'll go through that in a few minutes. And then the board responsibility, the 12-month planning calendar. This can be very, very useful to you as well. This is QSAC based, so your QSAC requirements are in here. And I can send this to you in a Word document so that you can add other things to it or move some things around if you would like to. But it's very helpful to keeping you on track. And then, as you probably are aware, once we do the board self-evaluation and then you set district and board of education goals, you know that for your district goals, the superintendent comes up with action plans. You need to come up with, for your board goals, a professional development improvement plan, which is on the pink sheet. And there's a blank and there's a sample behind that. And I will send you tomorrow morning the templates for you so that you have all this information. And it's really not difficult. The professional development improvement plan is something that is required by QSAC, and it will help you to figure out how you're going to get from where you are today to achieving that board goal that you have. So if it's training, if it's looking at your governance practices, if it's looking at policies or reviewing of policies, you can drop those things in. It's basically an action plan. Okay? Do you have any questions on the process at all? You know, you do this once a year, and I'm congratulating you on doing it. There is no statutory deadline for this. And if there aren't any questions, I'll hand you out what you're all looking forward to seeing. And I know that if I had given that to you first, you wouldn't have paid any attention to what I had just said. So we do learn as we get older. Sheet that you see on top is your QSAC documentation, and that will be very helpful to your business administrator in keeping that with her records so that when QSAC does come in and review you for the next monitoring time frame, that you'll have that, you'll have proof that you have actually done this and that I broke it and went through it with you. And so what it talks about is the fact that you've done this and what some of the charts mean, and I'm going to go through that with you. So, on the board self-evaluation, which says Board Self-Evaluation 2012 at the top, this is where we asked you to give the relative value of each of the 9 different areas that you were going to be evaluating yourselves in. And so the 9 different areas for your guests are planning, policy, student achievement, finance, board operations, board performance, board superintendent relationships, board staff relationships, and board and community. And the thing that you value the most, which does my heart good, is student achievement and policy. So those are the 2 things that you value the highest. The second was planning, and then the third was a 2-way tie for finance and the board and community's relationship. And with these will be important when we go through to be able to take a look at how you're operating as a board in terms of how you rated those values, those different areas in terms of values. So if you look at the next page, we're talking about planning, and as you know, we asked you to rate yourselves as a board, as an entity, and then as individual board members. And any score that's rated as a 3.0 or above, we believe to be a strong performance on behalf of the board. And you really are showing strong performance and exhibiting strong performance in almost all of these areas. Planning was an area that was just a little bit below that number. And so this would be an area that you may want to take a look at in terms of your board setting board goals. And you may want to try and improve in this area. It shows that, according to the results, it's showing that you are taking the time to develop district and board of education goals, which is wonderful, and you need to be doing that. But one of the things that you might want to try and beef up a little bit is how often you get progress reports on how you're doing towards the achievement of those goals. And that evaluation process calendar on the left-hand side can help you with that. And then in terms of about you as individual board members, you're also doing very, very well in that area. In terms of policy, this is a strong point for you, an area of strength. And there really wasn't any opportunity for growth or less than a 3.0, as we would say. We can always improve in some areas, certainly, but you have strong performance in this area, and as individual board members too. You're operating as a policy-making body, you're developing broad policies for administration to implement, and you're using those written policies as the framework for the decision-making that you do. And you're also avoiding day-to-day operations in the district, which is a wonderful thing for your superintendent and for your students. Student achievement is the next area that we asked you to evaluate yourselves on, and again, this is an area of strength for you. Determining the district's educational goals with input from administration, using the expertise of the professional staff and development of curriculum is a strength, and monitoring the effectiveness of your instructional programs was also a strength. And then as individual board members, focusing on improving student achievement as a basis for your decision-making was a very, very strong point. And some of the comments that you have talk about the strengths of the district and the strengths of the board and how you've been moving forward. Any questions so far? In terms of finance, this was an area that was right on the cusp there. And your strengths are exercising financial oversight in aspects of district operations and in accordance with statutes, and balancing the educational needs of the students with the budgetary impacts that you would have in your community. And then two of the things that you may want to take a look at are number 2, 3, and 4. Requiring, one of them is providing policy guidelines for finance, and then also making sure that you review and understand the annual audit and also your financial reports that you get with each of your board packets. And then requesting that any item that's non-budgeted would have an indication of need and where that money was going to come from and be transferred from. And as individuals, you show strengths in all of those areas as well. In terms of board operations, this was also an area of strength for you, acting only after administration has had time to gather information and make recommendations, respecting the administration's leadership. Your board method of governance has clearly defined bylaws and ensures appropriate communication to all of the board. So those were all areas of strength for you. And as individuals, recognizing the importance of teamwork and problem solving and effective decision making was also a strength. And one of the comments talked about the restructuring of the board committees that has greatly improved your efficiency and effectiveness. Any questions on board operations? And I will suggest that you really take a look at this in depth at a later time so that you can really go through and see what each of the scores are. Board performance is also an area of strength for you, recognizing that authority rests with the board as a whole at a weekly advertised meeting with a quorum of the board, making every effort to attend all of your board meetings and coming prepared, and then recognizing the need for confidentiality when it's needed was also a strength. Making no personal promises or taking private action, maintaining confidentiality, being respectful of everyone at the meetings, and adhering to ethical standards was also a strength. Board superintendent relationships, this was also an area of strength. Respecting the management responsibilities, working with the superintendent in spirits of mutual trust and confidence, keeping the superintendent informed about the community's aspirations, working with the superintendent to develop performance objectives, and requiring regular dialogue on progress reports towards district goals. It sounds as if from this that maybe you are getting those updates on the progress of how you're doing towards the district goals, but somewhere along the line, some of that information is getting lost when you sit down to do the evaluation. And I would recommend that you do have progress reports at least 3 times a year. And you definitely want to do one in the fall, and then one in January, and then have one done in March. And that one, I would suggest that, as for the superintendent, to make a formal presentation at a board meeting, 10 minutes or so, and really point out the things, the accomplishments that you've had for the district for the year. Because you want them to remember how you're doing towards the district goals just before they do your evaluation. And they want to know and have right at their fingertips how you're doing when it gets to their evaluation. Because as a former board member, I know my first year as a board member many, many years ago, the worst thing that happened to me, one of the worst things that happened was sitting down to do that superintendent's evaluation the first year, and I was thinking to myself, I can't remember when the last time we heard an update on each of the direction of the goals. So that was really unfortunate. So try and make sure that those things are in place, especially in the spring. Respecting management responsibility and observing the chain of command were also areas of strength for you. Board-staff relationships, this was also an area of strength. And one of the things that you may want to consider is number 3, and taking a look at that when you do your goal setting for the board. And that's providing for public recognition. And one of the things that you can do, you probably already do student recognition at board meetings. And one of the things that you can do that's been very effective in some of the districts that I'm working with is also invite the teachers in for those students. So the staff is getting recognition as well as the student. It's a great opportunity for pictures, and they're snapping with pictures behind me. It's a great opportunity for photos for parents and for teachers as well, and for the board. And then you can always use that information in your newsletters and such. But it also helps to recognize the staff member as well, and I think that really goes a long way. And then using and enforcing the chain of command was also an area of strength. Board and community, this was also an area of strength. Acting as representatives for every child in your school district and not having personal agendas. Anticipating community issues and trends that are facing your district and making sure that the superintendent is aware of those. And promoting community use of your school facilities, that was also a strength. And then 2 areas where most boards are having a little bit of difficulty right now, and for you it's not a great difficulty, but are providing opportunities for meaningful parental involvement and also having an effective community relations plan. So a program. So that's something that you may want to think about also when you're developing district and board goals. How the board as an entity can assist with the community relations aspect, and maybe as a district goal, improving your community relations plan as well, or your communications plan. Okay, and then the last page really does talk about the challenges that you've identified as facing your district, and not surprisingly at all, funding and your budget while maintaining an excellent academic program for your students are among the things that you're most feeling are most being challenged at this point. So you have a number of areas there that have to do with funding and with your budget, and then a number of areas that have to do with professional development, technology for staff and for students, improving student achievement, and those kinds of things. So those are areas that you may want to take a look at also before you sit down. I usually suggest that districts make a copy of this last page specifically, before you're going to sit down and do your district and board setting, goal setting, because it really can help you to remember what things you identified. And then at the bottom, we asked about what training, additional training you would like to have, and those really fell within the lines of policies and then communication, and improving communications on all levels. Any questions so far? And then the charts that you have before you are, the first chart is how you rated yourselves as a board, which is the dark column going up, and then how you rated that value, what value you gave to those 9 different areas. And obviously, we're looking for those areas to be pretty close together, because that indicates that you're really working at a high performance. And you are working at a strong performing board from the scores that you have. And then the second chart is board to individual. So this gives the rating of how you rated yourselves as a board to how you rated yourselves as individual board members. And so you can see that there are some differences there. And those charts, those copies we would like to see pretty equal as well. Any questions on anything that I've discussed so far? Okay, I I didn't have a third chart for you because I couldn't find the Joanne's records, one from last year. So you may not have used our evaluation tool, and you may have used your own board self-evaluation tool. But next year, this absolutely will be on record. And I'm not sure who your new field service representative will be at this point, but I'm sure that Jane Kirshner, who is my director, will be able to let you know that within the next month or so. I think the person's started. I think they have the target set for the middle of August. Okay. Any questions? If anybody has any questions or anything that comes up in the meantime, before you have anything signed up so far, my business card is in there. Please feel free to give me a call. Contact me.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any board members have questions or comments?
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now go into executive session. Approximately 20-25 minutes. Whereas the Board of Education will be discussing matters exempt from public discussion pursuant to NJSA 10:4-12, now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Education recess to close executive session at this time to discuss personnel. Be it further resolved that the results of the discussion be made public by inclusion on the agenda of the subsequent meeting of the Board of Education, or when the reasons for discussing such matters in closed session no longer exist. I so move. All those in favor? Turn to back in open session. Have the roll call, please.
Mrs. Stanchek Norton. Here. Mrs. Flynn. Here. Mrs. Kaczynski.
Here.
Dr. Reed.
Here.
Mrs. Russo.
Here.
Mrs. Valera.
Here.
Mrs. Zada.
Here.
Here. We're up to the hearing of the citizens' resolution items only. We now come to the portion of our meeting where we allow members of the public to address the board. In this section, we allow questions or comments on only the resolutions addressed in tonight's agenda. Our board regulations allot 20 minutes for these communications. Each person shall be limited to 3 minutes, and we ask you to try to stay within this time. Speakers may speak more than only after all others wishing to speak on the topic have been heard. All statements will be directed to me as chairperson, and no one may address the board members individually. Please be reminded that if your statement is too lengthy, personally directed, abusive, obscene, irrelevant, or redundant, your participation may be terminated. Please always remember to state your name and address each and every time you address the board. First person wishing to speak, please step forward. Resolution items on. Seeing no one, I'll close this portion of the. Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Coach. Alan Thomas, 108 McKinley Street. Mr. Coach, finance number 9, renewal of the garbage and refuse
Yes.
contract. I was wondering, we talked a lot about shared services with the town, and whether there was any discussions about sharing that service, or an explanation for why we are not.
We have an excellent, we can address that. Mrs. Gaming will answer your question.
Thank you so much.
I've had several discussions with Commissioner Roberts regarding this potential shared services, and the town's current contract expires May of 2013. So we need to renew our contract with Omni for 1 year. And then we will enter into discussions with the town when they're ready to go out to bid for their garbage renewal.
Any other questions? If not, I'll close this portion of the meeting. Mr. Kaczynski, will you move, Dr. Reed, will you move academic resolutions 1 through 3?
Yes, Mr. President, I make a motion to move academic resolutions number 1 through 3 as written.
Second.
Discussion. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Stanchek Norton. Here. Ms. Flynn.
Sorry, yes.
And here.
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Kaczynski.
Yes.
Dr. Reed.
Yes.
Mrs. Russo?
Yes.
Mrs. Scalera?
Yes.
Mrs. Pizzata?
Yes.
Mr. Gupta?
Yes. Mr. Kaczynski, will you move administration resolution number 1?
Yes, Mr. President, I move administration resolution number 1 as so prepared.
Second.
Discussion. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Stanchek Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Flynn?
Yes.
Mr. Kaczynski?
Yes.
Dr. Reed?
Yes.
Mrs. Russo?
Yes.
Mr. Scalera?
Yes.
Mrs. Pizzata?
Yes.
Mr. Gupta?
Yes. Mr. Esposito, will you move finance resolutions 1 through 16?
Mr. President, I move finance resolutions 1 through 16 as written.
Second.
Discussion.
Yes, Mr. President.
Number 16, change order for Radcliffe School. We reviewed this at the administrative meeting, and the amount was, in fact, there's a highlight, and I have the document open that was sent out. It was $35,363, but this, for the chimney liner and all, but this document is for $74,582. I don't know what the difference is.
The change order is $31,700 for the breaching liner and $35,100 for the actual breaching of the chimney, plus the overhead and the cost of the bond that they are allowed to add to the change order, bringing it to $74,582.
Then, Mr. President, my discussion is, why wasn't that discussed? We approved at the administrative meeting $35,000, and we had a discussion of it, and even about how we're going to have our attorney go after the situation on this. So we should have come back to us, I think, in the committee before it went on tonight, like this.
And that is a fact, when we discussed that we were at $35,000 price.
There's one other issue we have with this resolution. Mrs. Flynn, if you would.
The other issue that we have, which we discussed during the finance meeting, is that this specific change order needs to obtain some approval from the state because it exceeds the scope of the referendum money. To make sure that it falls within the scope of the referendum money before we do it, before we expend that money and approve it.
So the original work was
Part of the referendum,
Yes,
yes.
it was. This
Is
is
it-
correcting work that was done incorrectly.
Let me clarify what was done. When the boiler goes to get done, there has to be a chimney certification on the chimney. In fact, we had a couple discussions at the administrative meeting over the past 2 months on this. So I wanted to, whoever signs the chimney cert says the chimney is legal and free and clear for this. In fact, as you remember, I was the subcode official when this chimney was done. The form was signed by a prior architect or engineer that we no longer employ. So with that, we made the decision we need to fix it. It is a problem before the school year, and it'll go over to special counsel because the person certified that this chimney was properly sized, lined, and did not require any work for the new boiler to go in. So we will be having a recourse going after the person that signed the chimney certification, but in the meantime, we do need to get it fixed for school. That's why this issue is up tonight.
My only point was that we were going to make a resolution, we were going to amend the resolution to say pending state approval by the Department of Education, that we could use the referendum. I mean, we're going to approve it, but we're going to get the sign off from the state.
So,
And as I mentioned before, Mr. Scalera brought to my attention when we were talking, we didn't have the full amount of information we set out at admin. When I told you, as you hear Ms. Jamie confirm, was the actual cost for one piece of it, I didn't have all the information. So all the
And we did go
documentation was
over-
here. We did go over finance today, because we got the information in between meetings.
So, but to satisfy our board members, can we amend that resolution to include the language that we're talking about?
I was going to make a motion.
Before you make that as a motion to amend the resolution.
I was just going to, can I make a motion to amend finance resolution number 16 to read, now be it resolved that the Board of Education approves the following change order for ESR Mechanical Contractors, Inc. for HVAC upgrades at Radcliffe School as per the recommendation of the Board of Architect and Construction Manager, pending state approval as follows.
Second that motion.
Discussion on the motion. Call the roll on the motion to amend resolution 16.
Mrs. Stanchak Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Flynn?
Yes.
Mr. Kaczynski?
Yes.
Dr. Reed?
Yes.
Mrs. Russo?
Yes.
Mr. Scalera?
Yes.
Mrs. Pizzada?
Yes.
Mr. Coker?
Yes. Any other discussion on the resolutions?
Did we second all the resolution?
Everything that
Everything's second,
Yes.
call for a vote on it.
So, discussion, any other discussion, any other finance? If not, roll please.
Mrs. Stanchak Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Flynn?
Yes.
Mr. Kaczynski?
Yes.
Dr. Reed?
Yes.
Mrs. Russo?
Yes.
Mr. Scalera?
Yes.
Mr. Pizzada?
Yes.
Mr. Coker?
Yes. Mr. Kaczynski, we move personnel resolutions 1 and 2.
Yes, Mr. President, I move personal resolutions number 1 and 2 as so prepared.
Second?
Discussion. Not call the roll, please.
Mrs. Stanchak Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Flynn?
Yes.
Mr. Kaczynski?
Yes.
Dr. Reed?
Yes.
Mrs. Russo?
Yes.
Mr. Scalera?
Yes.
Mrs. Pizzada?
Yes.
Mr. Coker?
Yes. Hearing of the citizens. In this section, we allow questions or comments on all school-related matters. Regulations allow 30 minutes for these communications. Again, each person shall be limited to 3 minutes, and we ask you to try to stay within this requirement. As I stated earlier, all statements be directed to me as the chairperson, and no one may address the board members individually. Please be reminded that if your statement is too lengthy, personally directed, abusive, obscene, irrelevant, or redundant, your participation may be terminated. Please remember to always state your name and address at the time you address the board. First person wishing to speak, please step forward.
Got it.
You want to say?
See no one, close this portion of the meeting. Before we do the old business, I'd like to recognize our new principal for Radcliffe. I'm sorry, Danville. Mrs. Anne Marie Carolla. Congratulations again. I'm sure you did an excellent job. Old business. New business. Yes.
Regarding the recent purchase, I think it was $271,000 of new computer equipment. And I wish Mr. Levine was here, but hopefully Superintendent Lazovic can clarify or at least describe the process that'll be put in place to monitor our new equipment purchases. Sorry to put you on the spot.
No, it's okay. No heads up is necessary. What we've been finding through this process, I was speaking to the recent issue with some of our technology leading in the district. The process actually wasn't at fault. You know, it's very difficult to have a secure process when the person in charge of keeping it secure is the very person who is breaking the process. So we have to find some double checks. We've already talked, Mr. Levine, Meister, and myself, working with our district and building administrators to make sure there are more periodic checks, exactly how we can make that feasible, so we know more efficiently where our technology is. It's a huge investment that's here for the students and for the faculty to serve. It's not really a problem. Again, we do need contract with an external company to come in once a year to help us fully monitor it, but we need to be doing regular checks throughout the year. So it's not necessarily the process that was issued, but how timely it is, and making sure that we have double checks. We talked about a much more coherent system, and one of the things we're doing at Admin Retreat with the administration when back is talking about how we're moving through a new technology process so that we're always confident that our technology is in the right hands in the right places from week to week. The only problem with the process is we sometimes either wait too long in between, or as I said, it's very difficult for the person keeping something secure as the right person breaking the process.
Let me comment on that. Are you able at this time to give us any information on, everything in the paper seems to blow everything out of proportion. maybe for the public's purpose, to give them an understanding exactly what it was, or some kind of an estimate of what we really did lose?
We've been cooperating with the police since before this became public news. We've made sure that in conference with our attorney, we've taken no action that would jeopardize the board or the district. And we had to wait until things were finalized. We are still doing that. We're working through attorneys to make sure that we're covering the district's interest. And that everything that, at the end of the day, that was lost will be recovered in acceptable format, whether the machines come back or there's restitution so we can purchase new machines. The district will be made whole at some point. I can tell you right now that part of the issue is that the physical inventory is dispersed. We allow teachers to sign computers out. And over the summer, we've actually sent an email to everyone. We're still encouraging teachers here, please contact everyone else. We need those machines back. We're not giving out any actual information until we have hands-on every single piece of equipment that we can. We've gone through every building multiple times to make sure that every piece of equipment that's supposed to be there is there. There have been some switching of tags and the rest. Again, when the person involved is the person running the system, it becomes very difficult. What we have found is that at this point, the estimates are larger than I think have been published. But the concern is that we will have, at this point, we have a fairly solid idea of exactly how many computers left the district incorrectly. And what we're doing through attorneys is making sure we catalog that. We know exactly how much the district needs to in order to be made whole. We will recommence all that money basically at some point. I can tell you what has been reported for the most part accurately. We've had a wonderfully cooperative relationship with the police. This is involving multiple townships. It's been very difficult to get a true estimate. If it had happened during the year, it could have been done very quickly. Because it was over the summer and a number of our machines are out and being used, carts are still being used for special programs. I know that Mr. Meister and Mr. Levine have physically gone to every building, to every spot. We're checking everything. Even things that were not considered at first to be at risk, they've gone through to do a full physical inventory to make sure we have hands-on for every piece of machinery that we're supposed to.
Anything else from the other board members? If not, I have one piece of new business. Pleasure. Just to recap and what has happened, transpired over the last couple of months, Mr. Rogers was elected commissioner. As a result of that, he tendered his resignation to the Board of Education. He could not serve on both, it would be a conflict. And the board has 65 days to find a replacement for him, to vote in a replacement, or else the county superintendent has the right to appoint someone. We are still within that 65-day framework. At the time Mr. Rogers tendered his resignation, we sent out an invitation for people to apply for the position. As a result, and send in their resumes. As a result, we had 11 people apply. After that, one person did withdraw her name, so we basically had 10 candidates. And I'm happy to report that the quality of all 10 is really outstanding, and to narrow the field is a difficult decision. Based on the resumes, we reduced we went from 10 down to 5, where we brought in 5 people for interviews. And again, they were all outstanding interviews. I congratulate all 5 members who came in, thank them for coming in, and hope they continue to show interest in the work. So through discussions, we narrowed the field, and at this point, I'd like to open the floor for nominations.
Mr. President, I'd like to nominate Brenda Sherman to fill the vacant spot of Commissioner Rogers.
I second that motion.
Any other? I'd like to call the roll, please.
Mrs. Stanchek Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Kaczynski?
Yes.
Dr. Reed?
Yes.
Mrs. Russo? Yes. Mr. Scalera?
Yes.
Mrs. Spezzano?
Yes.
Mr. Costa?
Yes. Congratulations.
I move my seat.
Join me at the microphone.
I move my seat back.
Mrs. Gaiman,
I, Brenda Sherman,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
and to the governments established in the United States and this state,
and to the governments established in the United States and in this state,
under the authority of the people,
under the authority of the people,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations.
We'll now be going into executive session, after which we will adjourn and be no formal action taken. Whereas the Board of Education is discussing matters exempt from the public discussion pursuant to NJSA 10:4-12, now therefore be resolved that the Board of Education recess to close executive session at this time to discuss student matters and negotiations. Be it further resolved that the results of the discussion be public by inclusion on the agenda of the subsequent meeting of the Board of Education, or the reasons for discussing such matters in closed session no longer exist. I so move. All in favor? Aye. We'll now return to closed executive session.
Exercise.